Hey, I'm Moses Nickerson. This is Matty Fisher, co-founders of Pixlmob, co-hosts of the PropMedia Podcast, where we talk about everything in the property visuals industry.
Today, we're talking with Brandon Cooper. He's the founder of the PMRE Conference, which is a conference specifically for photographers and media companies making great content for real estate. So he shares a little bit of insight about the conference itself, what goes into making a conference like that work, the people that show up and speak. And so we learned a lot from him, and I hope you do too. Thanks, Brandon, for joining us. You've been a part of the Pixlmob story for a while.
Since before Pixlmob existed.
We started our media company in 2020, and during COVID, I think your second year in the conference world, and that was all online. So that was kind of my introduction. One of the first industry things that I kind of got a glimpse of, like what the industry was, and then I've been attending in person to PMRE every year since then, and we launched Pixlmob pretty much at PMRE. So anyways, the PMRE conference, for those of you who don't know, that's photography and media for real estate. And Brandon has been running this conference and bringing a lot of people from not just around the U.S., but around Canada, around the world. And you come and we talk about the industry and learn, and you have great workshops. So anyways, please kind of tell us a bit about you. What keeps you busy during the day?
It's pretty basic. I mean, the reason this whole conference came to be was because I needed something like PMRE. So I started real estate photography, I think it was 2012. By accident, I've been a licensed realtor since 2004. I started doing photos for my own listings to try and get a little more attention. Back then it was like pulling teeth trying to get anybody else to do professional photography, but I kind of backed into it. So by 2015, I had lost all love for selling real estate, and all I wanted to do was the photo side of things. And I remember telling my wife, if I could just shoot homes for a living, I'd be the happiest man in the world. And I remember saying, I think it was halfway through 2015, if I could do 10 shoots a week for 4 weeks in a row, I would quit my job, because I wasn't selling anymore. I kind of made the commitment to back away from real estate so that it wasn't a conflict with my clients. Fast forward 2016, we ended up having the biggest natural disaster in Canadian history. We had a wildfire that snuck up on our little town. Mm-hmm. By the way, I should mention I'm also way in northern Alberta. For people who don't know Canada too well, I'm about 9-hour drive north of Calgary. So I'm way up north. It's a very industry-driven oil town. At the time, we had about 85,000 people. The fire hit. Everybody was evacuated within 2 hours. We were told our house had burned down. We found out a week later it survived. We didn't get home until 3 months later. We didn't know if we were ever coming home. So everything was up in the air.
Wow.
Long story short, when I did get back to Fort McMurray, my only other competitor in town did not return, along with about 20 to 25,000 other residents. So we had lost about a quarter.
Wow.
Roughly a quarter of our population. But then all of a sudden I went from doing about 50 shoots a month, maybe 60 shoots a month, to like 150. The first month I came back, I think I shot 156 homes. Keep in mind, that was back in the day when it was just photography. So it was just 156 shoots. But of course, it helped me make the jump to go full time. So here we are. All of a sudden, I went from kind of no job for 3 months to now I can't keep my head on straight, which forced me to really focus on the business side. Back then, I'm sure you guys remember, or you'll at least hear the stories, outsourcing was the devil. We can't jeopardize our artistic integrity, all of these things, right? Which I related to. At the same time, we got to a point where it was like, well, I can't shoot 156 homes a month and edit until 3 a.m. when I've got a 2-year-old and a 8-year-old. And so I started searching for solutions. Along the way, I started to really realize what this industry is all about. And it's a ton of fun, but especially in my market during rebuild, because I spent basically 2016 to 2019 was basically the rebuild of Fort McMurray. We lost 15,500 structures. And so I was shooting homes that were damaged, homes that survived but were in trouble. There was a whole bunch of remediation work going on. But then I was shooting brand new homes in neighborhoods that were typically 40, 50 years old. So I was getting kind of thrown into this big, crazy mix. And started to realize I was by myself almost all day, every day. And I was like, man, I wish I could talk to somebody about this. I wish that there was challenges I was facing. There was, going back, there was the PFRE blog at the time, which was my only source for education online. Started to get to know folks in that group run by Larry Lorman. And that's where I would reach out to people. And if I was having a challenge, bounce some ideas and we would work through it together. And I was like, man, that's pretty cool. The other thing that came out of the 2016 wildfire was my photography coach at the time, starting, I think, 2014, we started working together, Tony Colangelo, who you guys are familiar with, I'm sure, and most of the industry is. We had talked about doing some workshops because I had a quick workflow because I had to figure out how to shoot 156 homes a month. Tony was a really good educator, and we had talked about doing some workshops together, but really never got around to it. Fast forward to 2016, I'm evacuated for potentially forever. And I just said, Tony, I'm living in my in-laws' basement with my wife. We don't know what our future looks like. So I said, maybe we should start doing some workshops now. So we did, 6 or 8 workshops over the next year across Canada and the US. And the feedback was always the exact same thing. They loved the education. Yes, it was very helpful for their photography, but more than anything, it was so amazing to be in a room with like-minded people where they could legitimately drop their guard and actually feel like they could share best practices, discuss their challenges, and be completely vulnerable without feeling like they're going to walk out of that room and get stabbed in the back tomorrow. Because if we're being honest, it's a challenging, cutthroat industry. You can't really call your competition across the road and vent and share best practices and talk, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of like, I know that was a bit of a long rant there, but that's where things came from. And so when we were up to, it was 2018, I was sort of full-time, beyond full-time real estate photography. The blog PFRE, Larry, the guy that founded it, was getting up there in age. I reached out and basically said, listen, please don't ever let this thing go. If you're ever ready to kind of hang it up, I'd love to take it off your hands. So we made a deal. I bought the blog off of him. And after those workshops, and after hearing, let's say about 150 people across 8 or 10 workshops say the same exact thing, I thought, man, there's a huge need for this, not just in small groups, but why don't we bring everybody together from wherever they want to come from? And so we bought the blog, we were operating the blog, and then we reached out to the community who was the PFRE blog and said, hey, if we pulled something together to bring everyone into the same room from around the world, would you guys be interested? What's your price point? Where do you want to go? Got some really good information from the audience, and then that was it. We launched the very first PMRE Conference at the time, 2019, which was focused strictly on photography. Had a great success, over 300 people from, I think at that time we had 12 countries for the very first event, which was great. We were all excited to double down for the future. And then, of course, April 2020 hits.
Dun, dun, dun.
And everything shuts down. And we were so close to just holding off. We were so stoked about the first year of PFRE that my wife and I listed our house for sale to completely minimize costs and double down on the conference. Then COVID hit. We almost skipped a year. Thank God we didn't. We went virtual for that 1 year, which, Matty, you're talking about would have been the year that you kind of first got a glimpse of sort of that community. Turned out to be great. It actually had a huge benefit because we ended up having 525 people that year from 25 or 26 different countries. And during a time where everybody was so starved for human interaction. I mean, it wasn't in person, but at least we could get together, and it kind of proved to the audience that we would do whatever to bring everyone together. And that's what really kind of kicked things off. So fast forward to today, we rebranded in 2023 to Photography and Media because that much more accurately reflects what this industry truly is and where things are going. And that's where we are today. And we're coming up here, less than 2 months away from our 7th event.
So exciting.
Yeah.
And you're still running your business, right? Your photo business.
Yeah. I still shoot. I still do all the stuff I always did. I did finally a couple of years ago bring on one shooter. Like I mentioned, I'm in a small town. We're about 60,000 people, but it's very transient. So it's not overly inspiring, if I'm being honest. It's a very cookie cutter town. It was built quickly. It's very much serviced by the oil and gas industry. So when things are hot, they're hot. When things are cold, they're cold. Not to mention half of the Europe here is dark and frozen.
Cold.
But I do have, and then in the summer it's hot and doesn't get dark really. So it's a unique, to say the least, it's a unique market. But I did hire someone 2 years ago, and she's turned out to be an absolute rock star. So right now, the only time I shoot in the last 6 months is if we're too busy, but I try to, allot as many hours as I can for her to keep going, and she's doing a great job, and then it allows me to sort of focus most of my time on PMRE and kind of our current annual event, and then kind of where we want to take things in the future and where we see things going.
So you've been doing this for 7 years. Is there can you articulate like a core philosophy of what PMRE is for? Like, what is it about it that gets exciting for you?
Well, in a nutshell, so basically what PMRE is all about is helping real estate media creators succeed while bringing the industry together, or bringing the community together and elevating the industry. So for me personally, ever since I was a kid, something that just comes natural. I'm sort of a connector. I'm the kind of guy that if I see a movie I love, I call everybody and their dog to say, you've got to see this movie. And then I want to hear what they thought of it. And it's that kind of thing, right? I was always the one at school that was sort of the common denominator. I'd hang out with every different group, and I always loved bringing people together. That was instilled in me at a young age with my family, and that's what gets me the most excited. So to be able to mix business, especially a very niche, unique business like what ours is. And the funny thing is, when we started it, it was ridiculously niche. It's still niche, but we are so recognized as a legitimate industry now. We're a huge part of the massive global real estate sort of ecosystem, I guess you could say, which is also kind of rewarding. So for me personally, the thing I love the most is bringing people together. When we get to see everybody every year, that's why my wife and I sit at the registration desk and shake every hand and hand out the badges, and we get to see people that we've gotten to know over the last 7-8 years. We get to meet new people. That's where I get my most excitement from. And then the second part is when people sort of reach out after the conference and say, man, I met so-and-so and we went for a beer, and within a couple hours, that person had saved me a year of pain because they're so much further ahead in their business than I am. And now they've created this relationship where they can reach out to each other. They're not in the same market. They're not competition, but they can benefit each other's business, which to me ultimately multiplied. If you think about 300 or 400 people doing that across the world, it naturally elevates the industry entirely. So for me personally, the connections, bringing people together, creating a real fun environment, hosting, taking care of our industry, giving people an opportunity to put their cameras down for a few days, take a deep breath, go up 10,000 feet and look at their business rather than being sort of stuck in it because we're so used to being just totally in the weeds. That's where I get the most satisfaction. And then also when people get to connect, go their separate ways, but then maintain relationships throughout the year from around the world. That's another byproduct that, if I'm being honest, kind of overlooked at the beginning. We were just trying to make sure we could make it work from a math perspective. Never did we think that we were going to help so many people connect with each other and build there's people that have come to the conference that go on they summer together, their wives and husbands are now friends. There's groups that have been formed, these spin-off groups and all that kind of stuff. And so there's a huge amount of satisfaction and I guess validation from that as well.
I think it's super cool, like the beyond just the conference and event dynamic, like you're saying, you guys have been a part of kind of this blow up in the industry, I think. I think when we kind of got in, let me frame this actually as a question because I don't have all the perspective you have. You guys you've been doing this for a decade before 2020, but I feel like there was a point in 2020 where there was a big boom. Does that sound accurate?
Or at least around that time
of real
period.
estate media companies kind of coming online and getting into the industry.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the big one. So by 2019, if you were to take our room 2019, say 300 plus, give or take, folks from around the world, mostly U.S., some Canadian, and then a sprinkle of 8 or 9 different countries. If you were to be on stage and ask a question, hey, who in here offers nothing but photography? You'd probably get 8 hands out of 10 were offering just photography, give or take. Then if you were to ask how many in this room are single operators versus how many in this room have a team or work for a company, you'd probably get about the same, 7, 8 out of 10 hands, right? So that was 2019. 2020, I think, is where we really saw things start to turn, because what at the time was a luxury, which would be, a Matterport 3D tour. It was more of an edge on your opponent, or not your opponent, your competition, I guess, if you're a realtor. All of a sudden became non-negotiable, because people, those are the days when a package would arrive on your steps and you weren't sure if you were allowed to touch it or not, right? The COVID days. And also, I should note too, at least where I lived, and I'm pretty sure across most of the US, we were deemed essential. And so while most of my friends were completely out of work, and everybody was freaking out, they weren't sure what they were going to do with their homes. They didn't know if they had a job. The real estate market just went it was just wild. And in my market, very heavy on the rental side, there was even more sort of transient insecurity. People just didn't know what to do. So all of a sudden, I was busier than I'd ever been. And I'm starting to communicate with my friends around the world who are doing the same thing as I'm doing. They're feeling the same thing. They're out there. They're like, oh my gosh, man, COVID was, from a business perspective, COVID was a massive gift. So I think tail end of 2019, it was like the perfect run up where people were starting to think of things. More people were doing video. It was a challenge. It was finicky. It was expensive. Agents didn't really have the budget for it. They hadn't seen the value of it being on social media quite yet. And then when COVID hit, it was like, what can you do to market my property where people don't have to come to the house? So that to me was where we really saw things pop. And then it just has gone nuts ever since then.
Yeah, there were stats back then. I think that year and the next year, something like 60-something% of property was sold without somebody actually setting foot in it. Like it went under contract without it being seen physically, which was unheard of. And of course, it's way down from that. But I think a lot of the shifts and things that people started trying and experimenting with it, certain people like those stuck and they did expand. And you guys shifted from PFRE to PMRE in that wave.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't go away, right? It's very hard to go back once you've gone that far forward. And once an agent has experienced the level of marketing that can be provided to them by a professional, and more so than the agent, the homeowners, because really the way we look at it, yes, our job is to help sell a home, but really we're trying to augment this is Scott Hargis used to talk about this 12 years ago. Our job is more about augmenting the agent brand. We're thinking more about getting that agent the next listing than we are as much about selling the home, because there's so many variables out of our control that go into selling the home: market conditions, who the agent is, whatever the heck else is going on. What we have full control over is how we make that agent look to all the prospective buyers and sellers that are out scrolling the internet. So when COVID hit, social media goes wild. We start thinking, what else can we offer to go over and above photo, video, 3D at the time? It was a perfect storm. And then you don't return from that. You can't do that for 2.5 years and then all of a sudden, okay, now we're good. You can come to the house, so we're just going to do photos anymore. Not to mention the increase in technology, right?
Yeah.
Drones are easier to fly. They're more affordable, better cameras. The iPhones are expanded. You can get an iPhone and a gimbal setup that's good enough to do as good or better video than you could even 5 years ago. This is talking sort of COVID time.
Yeah.
So again, like I said, perfect storm, and you don't come back from that. It's just only getting better. And if you look at it now, there's always trends, right? We're seeing some wild trends these days. I saw a post in a Facebook group the other day, something to the effect of, before you start a video, you got to make sure the house blows up. It's it's a scroll stopper, right? And there's always the trends, but at the end of the day, bottom line is we're no longer. When I started, it was like, if you use professional photography, you've got a massive edge on your other competition. Wasn't too long after that where it was like, if you don't use professional photography, then you don't stand a chance when you're sitting at that table trying to get a listing from an agent. Now we're at the point where it's not if you're using professional media creators to help you market your property. It's just who you're using. Like, it's just part of the business, which I think is pretty exciting. And the neat thing about it, I don't think it's ever going away. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. But I don't think it's ever going to go away.
What do you think is that number? What amount of listings, residential real estate, are actually using professionals in the very loose term? They're hiring someone to get media for their property?
I mean, if I had to get just using my own market, which is a unique one because we are very isolated, but we're also super international because of we're based on oil. So we represent. I think there's 88 countries or something like that of people represented in our community. So we get and people are coming and going from different countries constantly. So it's weird. We're a small little isolated place, but we get exposed to a lot of international influence. Man, I'm trying to think. Like we have 160 realtors in my town now, and I think I've only seen 2 that are still taking their own photos. But even when they take their own photos, they're still hiring us to do a video or a reel or a 3D tour or whatever. So, I mean, if you're talking mainstream, like the big cities, I would argue it's damn near 100%, except if it's for the very part-time realtors who are just picking up a listing from their friend once every 8 weeks or something like that. I think we're part of the workflow now. I really do. No different than a home inspection or a appraisal. And I think that we're actually one of the first calls in that equation.
Yeah.
Typically, it's the first call after you take a listing. Yeah, and there are a good number, at least in the United States, there's a lot of those like amateur agents, would be what I would label them, that do like onesie, twosie, 0-1 house a year. I think they don't always, but most of the professionals in our area use professional photographers as well. But we still see lots of non-professional photos run through the MLS systems and stuff like that, which is always kind of shocking to me that you would hire an agent that isn't even going to do professional photography. Blows my mind. Like, it's almost a question I would forget to ask if I were interviewing an agent. It's just,
especially when their rates don't change, right?
Right. It's like, right. So you're not going to shoot with a professional because can you knock off like $1,000 from your rate? Like, no. Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
I've got another question I like to ask. I think you'll have an interesting perspective. How many professional real estate photographers do you think there are in the world?
Matty's just crowdsourcing these numbers that we wish we knew.
This is such a, I mean, I get this question all the time, and I also talk to a lot of people about this question.
It's a hard one to break down.
I've been trying for years.
Well, and that's the thing. I've gone through it from different angles. I've had marathon conversations with Brannick from Aereo back when they were doing all of their hardcore market research. And Brian Balder from VHT, and then Matterport, guys that are really deep on the data side, right?
Yeah.
The number up until the last year or two that kept floating around was roughly in the US about 10,000 dead serious photographers or media creators, ones that are fully dedicated to it full time. But that number also, but then there's so many caveats where people are like, well, but it also could be about 17,000 because who the heck knows? So, I mean, if I had to take there's really, I mean, so, and we think about it too, because there's some stuff, like I said, that we've been working on for the last couple of years that are far out of scope from where we currently are. So some of that math is really relevant, but when you get into parts of the world where countries are the size of states and populate, it's so difficult to guess. I guess what I'm saying is I have no idea. But if I had to put a number on it, if I had to take a shot of like absolute professional real estate media creators who are making it their business, and this is including, if you have an agency and there's 15 people on your team, I would include those in dead serious people who are committed kind of full time. I wouldn't be surprised if there's, 25,000, give or take. 25,000, give or take 15,000. How about we go there?
Yeah, that's a narrower range than we hear sometimes. I remember a conversation we were in. It was like probably 20,000 or 100,000. Like okay, so like you got a 5 times standard of deviation there. But anyway,
what I like about PMRE is that you've got people from around the country that are sometimes they're experiencing the industry for the first time. Like they've been they've been kind of very like in an isolated part of no interaction with other photographers doing real estate media. And so like, I just love the kind of diversity of thought and just like how people are kind of absorbing what they think the industry is. But I'll have people that'll say, oh man, There has to be over 1 million. Like
We're like, I don't think you're in touch with how big the world is, but okay.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty tough number to break down, and I think it comes down to some of the heavy caveats that you're talking about, like full time or like serious effort towards a specific niche. And there's a lot of people that do like real estate as part of a media company or a marketing company that might not be specific to real estate at all.
Right.
So, and then you got the whole global part of it, which is really, really hard to estimate. So anyway, cool. Yeah. Thanks for playing my game.
Yeah. One more point on that, actually, because if you think about it, it's interesting because you could play the same game, which we have many times. Ask that question about realtors. Now, you can get a real number because most of the world regulates real estate. So you have to be a licensed realtor. So there might be 3 million realtors in the US or 3.5 million realtors, but are 700,000 of them doing 85% of that business? Probably. Whereas our industry, and this is something that's come up since my early days, there was a group back in the day that tried to kind of organize with, in my opinion, good intent to build sort of I don't know what the word would be. I want to say, I guess, organize the industry. Problem was the people that were all involved were all the big box folks that were, and like I said, they had a good mission. But we started out as such an independent industry, and there's still a huge. That's kind of what PMRE is. Like, we have a bunch of everybody, but there a lot of the people that come to PMRE are a little bit more on the independent side. Small agency, 1 or 2 person teams, 3 person team, 5 people team, maybe 20 people. But we still get the big box stores that come and hang out, and it's actually helped kind of bridge the gap. There used to be this hard, like, they didn't get along, but now this industry is becoming much more cohesive. But there is no governing board or regulator for real estate media, which I'm a huge fan of. I think it should be the way it is. I like the independence. I think that's what helps. It's kind of like free market, right? That's what drives this industry forward so fast and it's competitive, and it makes it so good for our customers and for the industry in general. It just makes it hard to figure out the kind of questions that you were just asking. We have no real idea what the number is. And in my opinion, I don't know if it actually matters, to be honest with you. It depends. I mean, in your guys' world, it's a little bit different because you have multiple sort of sides to your business. So knowing what your overall opportunity is for a customer base, I could see the value in that. For me, I kind of look at it, I'm like, I don't really care. We'll grow.
You care that you're it in your town. There's one in your town.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive into like who you've met doing these conferences, and maybe start with like, so there's this gap in the industry where people want to get together. They're the ugly duckling. They've never met anyone else like them. So they're like, what is this thing that I do? And then they find there's other people who are actually the same as them. And they're like, yay. All right. But in that space of those people, like, what are the knowledge gaps? What are the things that you're surprised that they still need to learn when they're engaging with PMRE for the first time?
It would probably come down to the technical side. One of the things that's interesting about how PMRE has evolved over the years is that we started out strictly photography. We evolved into more of what the industry truly is, which is all things media, basically whatever realtors or developers or designers or whatever anybody needs to market real estate. So we're a full stop marketing partner for our clients, right? Again, clients can be agents, builders, designers, architects, whatever, all of the above. The folks that the newest folks that come in are so hung up on technology, getting better photos, getting better videos. What drone do I do? How do I get licensed on it? Like a lot of the very basic stuff. And when I say basic, it's not basic. I just mean it's
the core simple stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. The core side of it. Yeah. But over the years, what's nice about our audience and our community is we ask them a bunch of questions at the end of every single conference, and we get like, if I send out 350 surveys, I get like 295 of them back within 3 days, and they don't hold back. They're deadly honest.
That's impressive.
And it's unbelievable, and it's I'm so thankful for it, because I always joke it's my favorite and my least favorite time of the year, because I sit there and I'm just like, some of the stuff I hear, I'm just like, do you honestly think we didn't think about this? Like, we just had to pick what hill we're going to die on.
Yeah.
Of course, we've considered that. But
And
I mean,
now
all that aside,
I'm going to have a lot of FOMO when I get that survey. I'm going to feel like I'm going to be like the only person who didn't do it or something. So like,
the beautiful thing about it is that we've been able to take that information, and that's how we dictate where we go from there. The last 2 years, all I keep hearing from people is like, Brandon, hey, dude, we get it. We know how to take a better photo. We understand composition. We're all very proficient in what we do from a technical perspective. We need more help on the business side. We're a bunch of creatives trying to be business people, and we need help on marketing and sales and scaling and team building and structure and all the stuff that isn't necessarily the most fun or the most sexy, but it's mission critical when it comes to the industry that we're in these days. And so the newest folks, and I try to be really upfront and make this clear. I get a lot of phone calls where people are like, hey, just heard about you guys, which also I find hilarious too. When you've got someone that's been in the business 10 years or 8 years or 6 years, and they've never heard of the biggest real estate media conference that's out there. If I'm a new person or if I'm in there for 6 years, we take it for granted. We think it's a small community because we think of the Facebook groups and social media, but in reality, there's a lot of people out there that aren't spending time on their computer, and they don't know that big community exists, right? So it's really exciting because there's lots of opportunity out there. But all that being said, the shift is moving much more towards business supporting creativity rather than creativity being the driving force. And the ones that are the most successful, in my opinion, the ones that we're seeing just really blowing up, are the ones that have found a way to kind of bridge that gap where their creativity and their business sense are almost on par. Most of them lean one way or the other. But to answer your question, bottom line, what the new folks are coming in, they're really hungry for technical, and that's why we do the workshops and some of the other things that we do, where it's like, if you really want the hands-on stuff, we can certainly provide that. But the bulk of the audience doesn't want the super technical. Our whole thing is, what we try to create in Vegas is what you can't get from home. So I mean, nowadays, if you think back to even when you started, like in 2020, 2019-ish, there wasn't a whole lot of educational opportunity out there, right? Like I remember Scott Hargis put out a PDF book. I won't share the numbers, but I know how many copies this PDF sold in 2000, I think it was 11. And it is mind-boggling of what this 50-page PDF book on photography for real estate lighting. Fast forward to today, you can get all this education you want from home, and you can get it for free, and you can get it better than what we could do on stage for 45 minutes trying to be technical to an audience of 300 people. So we focus on what can't you get from home. And the number one thing is you can't get 350 real estate media pros, because the vast majority of that room is very savvy and very experienced. The beautiful thing is we get about 20% every year that's new, but it fast tracks them from being new to all of a sudden they feel like they've been in it for 3 or 4 years because they get to rub shoulders with these folks. And the cool thing about those folks is they're very open with their information. So bottom line, sorry to go back, I know I'm rambling here, but the answer to your question, the newer folks focus too much on the technical side. Technology is so good. You have access to education no matter where you are. If you have an internet connection, a lot of it's free, some of it's paid, but it's all good. Most of it's good. You can get most of that stuff from home. What you can't get from home is that connection, the communication, the networking, and the idea to be able to, like I said, sit down for a beer with a guy for 2 hours and have him teach you how he scaled from 1 to 4 people, and you learn what mistakes not to make. So we try to remind people, hey, yes, we are a real estate media conference. Yes, the technical side is obviously very important, but based on the feedback we've had over the last 2-3 years, the vast majority of the attendees, they want help on the business side. They know they can get the technical stuff from home. But if they do require some technical support, we have 2 options. Number one, they can do some workshops, or they bump into somebody at the conference that's really good at what they do, and they're open to coaching or be doing some consulting, stuff like that. So it's about connecting all those folks and get them to take away what's most valuable to them, and not waste too much time on the stuff that they can kind of get from home.
All right, let's nitty gritty a little bit. How do you actually pick speakers and people you want to engage with PMRE?
Well, this keeps me up at night, right? If there's anything other than the day-to-day stress of, the financials and the logistics and the fact that you've got so many people's money and investment and time away from their home and their family and their business kind of in your hands to put on a really good experience for them, that's kind of like the number one thing that keeps you up at night. But the speaker roster is mission critical because number one, especially for the new folks. There's two sides to it, right? I get some people that are like, I don't care who you have on stage. I'm coming there to network and to meet people, and I want to see, I've been with Pixlmob for 3 years. I want to come and shake their hands and high five them and meet them in person. There's that kind of thing. Then you get the other ones that are like, if I don't leave here with enough skills to justify my investment for this conference, you're dead to me, right? So we have this like weird dichotomy.
I believe that 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is where it gets dicey because, again, we get really good feedback every year, and we listen very hard to that feedback. We also ask people to rate the speakers, and we keep it confidential because we don't need to air that kind of stuff out. But it's very valuable for us because a lot of people that I think I might have a call a month before the conference and go through a presentation with somebody and be like, "This is going to be the cat's ass," and then they go up on stage, and I'm like, this is not what we discussed. What is happening? And I got to almost like hide in the closet for half an hour and freak out a little bit and then come back out. And then there's ones where I'm like, man, they're a little shaky, they're nervous, and then they go out and they kill it. So the big thing is what we've learned over the years: comfortability and charisma on stage trumps quality content 9 times out of 10 when it comes to feedback from your audience.
Sure.
It's like watching a comedian, right? If someone's bombing on stage as a comedian and you're in the crowd, as long as you're not a completely soulless human, you're sitting there and you're stressed out for them, you're worried about them, and your palms are sweating and you feel bad, and it's awkward and it's uncomfortable, and that sticks with you. Whereas if somebody goes out and their content is decent, or they're a half decent comedian, let's say, but they're so likable and charismatic and just you can relate to them, you feel like they're better than the other person because maybe their jokes were worse, but they delivered them in a better way. So what we've learned over the years is you can be the best at what you do, like the best at what you do, and we've seen it happen. But if you're not built to be on that stage and face 300 plus people, and if we're being honest, a lot of guys, we've made a pretty serious effort we're a room full of creatives, right? We got to give people a show. So we put as much work into the production side of PMRE as we do anything else. We want big lights and big sound and excitement and creativity. And so if you walk out there on that stage, people can get really kind of caught up in the moment and realize, holy smokes, there's 350 people looking at me. We're live streaming around the world. I can hear my voice through these huge speakers. There's lights, there's sounds. That can be very, very intimidating. So all that being said, when it comes to choosing speakers, we have to take that all into consideration. So my goal is always, first of all, who wants to be on stage? I never want to force somebody. I never want to I don't want it to be a money thing where it's like, hey Brandon, I need this much money and I'll do it, because that doesn't work. I want somebody who's like, hey Brandon, I love this industry. I love this community. This business has been so good to me. I'd love to share my knowledge. I do require some compensation because we do pay every single speaker that hits that stage. But the ones that are up there that really want to contribute are the ones that get me the most excited. And then on top of it, if they're comfortable and excited to deliver the message that they want to deliver, and they've got some charisma, that's what tips the scale. If I've got someone who's 99% good at what they do, but they've got no personality, and honestly, they don't really care, they're there to pick up a paycheck, that drops the stock. If you got somebody there who's 80% good at what they do, but they're super passionate and they're going to light a fire under the ass of a bunch of the people in the room, they float to the top, right? So that's sort of the metric I take. And then when it comes to trying to figure out the dynamic in terms of, it's such a tough industry. Again, we just talked about it. It's so hard to go on stage and deliver a bunch of technical information in 45 minutes, keep the audience engaged, but also be effective. So it's like, well, how do we do that, provide enough value where I'm just staring at my whiteboard right now, looking at my roster. And what it really comes down to, for an event like ours, where we have one stage dedicated to these presenters, they get about 45 minutes each with some Q&A. It's more about the why and less about the how. So we want them to inspire you for the why. And we know you can go home if you really get inspired by somebody talking about SEO and GEO in 2025, where AI is going to have a huge impact on SEO. You can't cover that in 45 minutes, but you can certainly kind of wet the whistle, and then that person can go home and do a deep dive on it on their own. So we try to do that. We try to cover as many aspects of the industry as we can. Obviously, it's a challenge to get too deep on the technical. A good example would be like maybe Devin last year. He talked about video, but not about how to shoot video. He talked about the story, and he used some examples that in my mind were some of the coolest. I don't know if you guys remember the video of the house that was narrating itself, telling the story
Yes.
of its history. It was one of the most brilliant videos I've ever seen in my life, and to this day it sticks with me when I'm watching my competition in town blowing up houses and dust to dawns and speed ramps and all this stuff. It looks cool, but I'm like, but is that really for the buyer? They don't care. They know what a house is going to look like at night, but who's that for, and what's the reason? Who's your actual core audience? So at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. It's a combination of trying to have a balance of content that appeals to a lot of folks in the room, making sure that the people on stage aren't only proficient in what they do, but they're as proficient or more so in communicating the most valuable part of what they do to the audience, if that makes sense. It's a challenge beyond belief. It's the funnest part of the job, and it's also the most difficult part of the job. And it's also the one that we take the most praise for and the most heat for.
Don't envy your spot there. Yeah.
It's a tough one, but it is fun though. It is fun.
Yeah. No, it's such an interesting thing to be in that position, I would think. There's all kinds of things for people to learn. There's new things that pop up. In a lot of ways, the conversations that you are choosing to start potentially sets the tone in some way for the next year of what maybe how at least these people, those 300 to 500 people that are attending or tuning in online, how they're going to be thinking about their business. And that may influence how the industry evolves over that period of time. So
yeah,
it's a pretty cool power to wield, but also a ton of responsibility, I imagine.
4 or 5 years ago, we started talking about copyright and we talk about, like early on, I said, helping real estate media creators succeed while bringing the community together and elevating the industry. Part of elevating the industry is when you get the vast majority of the biggest influencers in the industry moving in the same direction, the challenging conversations become the norm. So like for a realtor who's used to paying $200, but if the standard is becoming $400 and everybody's speaking the same language, it makes it easier for our industry to grow and get better because it's not as hard to have that conversation with agents. And the same thing goes for, if you're just trying to, not like everybody needs to go hardcore on copyright and protect their images and all that, but if at least it's in the atmosphere of our industry where people are saying, hey, we should protect our creative work because it's kind of our most important asset. You're going to get some that dedicate their life to chasing people down for copyright. You're going to get some who are like, I don't really want to pick that battle. But at the very least, you're going to have everybody conscious of the idea that this is something that's fairly important for the overall industry. So that's one thing that started 4 or 5 years ago. And now back then, people were like, what's copyright? I don't have no time for this. They had checked out. They had no interest in it. Now they're at least thinking of it. And there are some times where they might want to maybe dig in a little bit and implement some controls over their assets. So that's one of the examples to your point of it definitely does help. The stuff that sucks gets collectively dismissed by the group and then it goes away. Like we're talking, these houses blowing up. I promise you in a year, houses will stop blowing up. I guarantee it. But some of the other stuff that right now is like where more thoughtful storytelling and really fostering relationships with your clients and your agents, that's only going to get stronger and stronger as the general consensus of how the industry operates moves forward. So that's something that we're conscious of all the time. And that's why we rely on the feedback from the industry and also, the speakers that we talk to as well.
It's an interesting balance because you sit in is a fascinating spot because just like you're talking about, like you're obviously learning from the speakers and you're bringing them for their expertise, but you also have the opportunity to actually provoke conversations that are important to the industry. Like I know for me, 2021 was the first time I ever really engaged with what do copyrights look like for the media that we produce and stuff like that in a session at PMRE sitting in the South Point, whatever it is, that casino that we were
showroom.
in. And that conversation has begun, and that's something Pixlmob is starting to get interested in, and how we can engage and help foster the ability to do licensing well throughout the industry and things like that. And a lot of that, like that spirals out of the choices you're making in what conversations are starting from that stage. So I think it's pretty cool, and I appreciate a lot of the work that you're doing there, and I hope you still make great choices. Don't make dumb choices, Brandon. Okay.
Oh, there's no pressure. Perfect. I appreciate that, but also this is a perfect opportunity to throw it back out to you guys and to everybody else who's listening. I mean, we do our surveys, we get our feedback. I get raked over the coals for all the presenters that I've chosen, and I throw it back out and I'm like, guys, I've been asking you for 7-8 years, who do you want to see on stage? Who do you want to see on stage? And of course, we can't just pick everybody, but that's the beautiful thing about our operation. There's nothing else. It's I mean, other than our team that helps organize and execute, we don't have any obligation to. We are truly independent. It's just ultimately I have to make the decisions. And so, I mean, perfect example, I'm putting a friggin' magician on the stage this year. Everybody thinks I'm a lunatic, but there's a real reason for that. The guy's had to reinvent himself for 40 years. He's made a lifelong career being a creative. He knew what it was like to try and live the business life or learn the business life as a creative before our industry was even like not even conceived of, right? So what I'm trying to say is please give me ideas. Tell me what you guys want to hear. Obviously, there's things that logistics come into play, costs come into play, all kinds of variables, but throw it at us, man. We have a button on our website that says nominate a speaker. Whether it's yourself, whether it's someone you know, whether it's someone you've caught wind of, man, send them all our way. And I read every single one of them, and we take that stuff super seriously. So please, we want to crowdsource the industry's collective sort of hive knowledge to make sure that the right people are on that stage and directing this industry in the right way. Because that's the thing is I don't go on stage. I'm in the back room. We got to make sure the people on that stage are the right people, and it's a gamble.
Yeah.
Some of the time, right? So.
Well, we should put our heads together. We have a similar list we have to build of people to interview on this podcast and stuff like that. So actually, it might be an 100%. Interesting conversation to talk about.
I'll put in my nomination now.
Absolutely.
For Matt Damon next year.
Oh, excellent.
So yeah, get that down. Get on the whiteboard.
Maybe talk about copyright and licensing. You think he's?
Yeah, I want to know what Matt Damon thinks about real estate media. That's.
Matt Damon. Is that sounds familiar? Is that the dude from Team America?
Yeah, exactly. That's what he's most well known for, yes.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Brandon, I want to give you an opportunity here as we wrap up. What is, like, if you want to give a message to anybody who's watching this podcast about, like, why should they come to PMRE this year?
Well, like every year, we have, number one, we've got the largest gathering of real estate media creators from around the world under one roof. Everybody shows up, drops their guard at the door. There's no ego. Everyone is ridiculously willing to share their information with each other. To me, that's the one intangible that money cannot buy. Some big company could come and drop $10 million and create an event, and you wouldn't have that type of a culture. So that's number one. Number two, in my opinion, we've got the most exciting roster of sponsors that we've ever had. A lot of our kind of go-to folks. For those of you, there's a lot that do the same thing. There's some independent sponsors that are unique this year. AI is obviously a big thing, and so there's going to be some come there showing technology that can really.
And your favorite sponsor will be there too, yeah. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think there's 7 new sponsors this year that have never been there, and only 2 of them compete with each other. So there's new products that are going to be.
Oh wow.
Nice. That's
really
pretty cool.
Revealed. One of the other things that's really neat, that this was kind of my dream from day one, was some of these companies are starting to use PMRE as a platform to launch announcements, new product, new software, new updates. So there's some of that coming down. I'm not even privy to what exactly it is, other than the company saying, hey, we need an opportunity to make this big announcement. So there's some of that that's really cool. And then over and above that, I'm really excited about our speaker roster this year. This is the first year, I don't mean any disrespect to any past years, but this is probably the first year ever where I felt like everyone's bringing something unique to the table, but they're all super competent on stage as well. In the past, we've had some presenters who are really good at what they do, but they've been very open and honest and said, I'm not a big public speaker, but I'm down for it. I'm down for the challenge. And that's a bit of a dicey situation, but I feel really confident with our roster. Everybody's super excited to be there. The cool thing is we don't have anybody that was, tough to get. We just asked them and they were stoked. So everyone that's going to be on that stage is very excited. And there's going to be some unique education. We've also got the workshops, obviously, for those. There's still a few spots available for those who are looking at some of the more hardcore technical opportunities. There's going to be some crazy houses to shoot and stuff like that. That's basically it. I mean, again, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, I can speak to it from my own experience. That example I used earlier about having a beer with a guy for a couple hours and saved somebody a bunch of hours, that was me. I was sitting down with Reed Fish. I was about to hire my first employee. He was on his third. I told him how I was going to hire. He told me that he went down that road and explained a bunch of the challenges that he faced, and it completely changed my approach, and it saved me a year of pain. So more than anything, just get down there and start to become a part of the community, build some connections so that when you're back in your market, you've got someone to call for almost any problem you need, whether it's photography, videography, drone, the business side, accounting. You're going to bump into so many people who are super savvy and well advanced, further than where your business is at. You're going to leave with massive contacts that you can reach out to. And I should, on that note, mention, we've got almost 100 brand new people this year, which is the biggest we've had for new returning, new attendees ever. So don't be shy. Don't be shy if you're new, if you're a single. We've got people I've got a couple folks that literally got into this 3 months ago, and we had a marathon phone call, and I just said, listen, it's up to you. But I'm telling you, they're like, I'm going to wait 2 or 3 years. I'm not quite there yet. And I'm like, come now.
Or don't, or come this year.
So, yeah, come now, because those 2 or 3 years will become this year.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Strongly agree. Strongly agree.
Yeah. And if some people get intimidated, if I could leave them with one thought, is trust me when I tell you, when we went into South Point in 2019, and when I announced the first conference ever, I got so many emails and were like, are you out of your mind? Like, have you ever spent any time in these Facebook groups? These guys are nuts. You want to put 300 of these people in one room? You're crazy. And I was like, yeah, I know, I see the Facebook groups, but that's not our industry. I think that's just social media in general. I got a little more faith in humanity, so we're taking a chance. And then what happened? Even the people who are the biggest sort of trash talkers online, they show up and you're like, wait a second, you're actually super nice. It's a different vibe, right? So don't be shy. Bottom line, come meet a bunch of new friends, make some contacts, and fast track your business.
Thanks so much, Brandon. And before you go, I think it'd be great to give you kind of a quick opportunity to, if there's any kind of last minute information, this is going to be going out before PMRE. Are there things people should know, and where can they follow you and follow the conference online?
Sure. So follow us at PMRE Conference on Instagram. That's where, we put out a bunch of updates, and that's a quick way of just seeing the information that we're putting out on a day-to-day basis. For those that are already registered or thinking of registering, you can download the PMRE app on the App Store or on the Google Play. It's fully updated with the agenda, speakers. There's already probably 200 plus attendees on there that are already talking to each other. All the vendors are there already. You can start setting up meetings with them ahead of time. And then for the most updated information, visit PMREconference.com. That's also where you can register. And then one more thing for those who are serious about joining us this year, we have a bunch of hotel rooms booked to maintain ridiculously good pricing, especially because it is F1 weekend. The deadline to book your room is October 16th. And I promise you don't want to miss that, because Vegas weekend with F1 coming, those prices could quadruple or go up 5x. So yeah, they're going to be brutal. And it doesn't matter what hotel it is. Every hotel in town is going to go nuts. So we've gone out of our way to book those rooms and make sure that they're available. So take advantage of it.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for sharing some of the history, your insight in the industry. And we're looking forward to PMRE here in a couple months.
Yeah, us too. And thank you so much for having me on, guys. It was a ton of fun. And thank you very much too, by the way, for all of your support over the last few years. It's been really fun to watch Pixlmob grow, and we use it all the time back home as well. So thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
You got it. We love it. We love the industry too. All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, guys.